So this is the Constitution class. It's something I taught history for 10 years when we lived down in Oklahoma, so it's something I love. I love government, I love talking about politics. So the first question I usually ask, and this is something that we don't answer until the end of the class, which I think we're going to do this 3 more times, I believe is what we had scheduled, 3 weeks.
I'm not sure what you decided.
Either way is fine. But I think we're going to do 3 weeks. It's kind of broke down. Today is going to be kind of everything leading up to the Constitution. Next week will be the 7 articles. The following week will be the 27 amendments. And the last week will be just kind of a quick review. Maybe we'll see who remembers what, which I'm sure my children will not remember much. Like I said, the first question I usually ask, is the Constitution a living document that changes with the times? Or is it something that is a standalone document? You shook your head no. I'll go ahead and give you a chance. Why?
It's standalone because it was written in 1776.
Okay. I will tell you this, and I should have told you earlier. If you tell me that it is, I'm going to tell you it's not. If you tell me it's not, I'm going to tell you it is, just to argue with you to make you think. Okay.
Yeah.
So you tell me it is, but I'm going to say back in 1776, 1791, they didn't have all the technologies and things that we have today. Did they take account of that? Or because when you're living in that time frame, do you have any idea what's coming? Do we know what's going to happen 100 years from now? What technology will be like? So neither did the founding fathers. So it kind of also does kind of have to change with the times. Okay, and you're not wrong. Okay, I'm just like I said, if you tell me one thing, I'm going to argue with you to make you think, because that's my whole purpose of what this class is, to make you think. One of the first things that took us, remember when you're dealing with history, you don't just wake up, the colonists and the people didn't wake up one morning and say, let's revolt, right? People don't just wake up and say, you know what, it's a good day to break away from England. So things have to happen in in history, you can't get to letter G without A, B, C, D, E, and F. So there's things that happen to kind of help promote the bringing about of the Constitution. The first is probably the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta was written in 1217. Okay, the Magna Carta was written in 1217. It was the first constitutional document in Europe. Which country had the Magna Carta, Megan?
British?
The British. It's based in England. So England wrote the Magna Carta. It was written by basically landowning men that was protesting the king's power. So the Magna Carta was something that the colonists years later will draw upon, and they will use it as part of the Constitution. It's basically the early background of the Constitution, especially the Fifth Amendment when they talk about the right to life, liberty, and property. Megan, Elijah, explain to me what the Mayflower Compact was. The Mayflower Compact, Megan, was what?
The saints and the non-saints coming together.
The saints and the non-saints coming together. The Mayflower Compact, when the Puritans or the Pilgrims leave the Netherlands or Holland and they sail over, if I'm talking too fast, tell me to slow down. Okay? Because I tend to get carried away. So the Mayflower Compact is an instance to where the Puritans or the Pilgrims are coming over to the New World or to what will become America, and they are on there with all Pilgrims and Puritans, Megan, or was there other people? There were other people who did not believe necessarily what they believed. The Puritans or the Pilgrims had a contract with the London-based company that said they had to settle near the Hudson Bay. Okay? What happens is, though, they're going to come in and this storm is going to push them way off course. And when they land, the non-Puritans wanted to go to Hudson Bay, and the Puritans wanted to stay, and there's this big conflict. And it was very difficult for a colony to survive anyway at that time, and the less people you had, it made it even more difficult. So this is one of the first agreements that people are going to come together and create a set organization of laws and norms and basic society things that they feel should be used to create a society. It's also something they will draw upon years later with the Constitution. The French and Indian War. Up to this point, England and France are constantly at war. They have several wars between the 1700s, early 1800s. The French and Indian War is another one of those wars. And it is important because, one, it is going to be the first war that colonists will fight in. Colonists will fight basically in the Ohio Valley River area and the Great Lakes, and they will have to basically defend themselves for the first time with a little bit of English help. So the French and Indian War is a war that was fought between English, French, and Native Americans on both sides. It's fought in the Ohio River Valley area, it's fought in the Great Lakes area, and it's fought in the Caribbean and fought in Europe as well. It is important because it will cost a lot of money for England to fight the French and Indian War. And they will state that since a lot of the fighting was done on the colonies, within the colonies, that the colonists should help pay for it. So this is one of the first instances to where England is starting to say, okay, you guys have come over here, you've lived in North America, or you've lived in this new world, and you've really not paid your way. I mean, you've paid basic taxes and stuff, but now all of a sudden the cost of this war has doubled our debt, and we have to pay for it. So how are they going to try and make them pay for it? What are they going to institute, Elijah?
Stamp Act.
The Stamp Act. The Stamp Act is the first actual tax targeted directly at the colonists. It is directed at the colonists to help repay for the French and Indian War. It is basically a mark or a stamp of some sort that would allow goods and services to be traded, either bought or sold. What happens is the colonists will not become very happy with this, and a lot of them will turn to smuggling. A lot of the founding fathers were smugglers. They would smuggle in French tea. They would smuggle in French items to avoid the English tax. So what happens is the colonists continue to have a huge uproar. They're upset at this tax, and England will say, okay, we will kind of give in, but they will issue what's called the Declaratory Act. The Declaratory Act states that even though we're going to repeal the Stamp Act, England states that they have the right to tax the colonists. Okay? We're going to give in, but at the same time, we do have the right to tax the colonists. Which will continue. They'll continue to do a few other little things to the colonists. That's going to upset them, and they are going to do the Boston Tea Party. Do either of you two know the Boston Tea Party? Yes, sir.
Isn't it where the colonists dressed up as Indians and dumped over all the tea because they didn't want to pay for it?
That is correct. They dump all the tea in the port as a protest to show England that they are not happy with all of the taxes and the regulations and things that are going on. So it starts to create more animosity between England and the colonies. Okay? At one point, England, everyone that was here thought they were truly English. okay? But as time goes on, it would be like if Megan moved out, okay? Right now, we're a pretty close family. But if Megan moves out, now all of a sudden, we're still close, but Megan doesn't quite follow all of the rules and the laws that Dad had. And it's the same way with the colonies, right? You are 2,000 miles away from the king. So you start to have a little bit more, this is kind of nice not having to follow all of English laws, not having to follow all of English customs. We can start to kind of do our own thing. So it's kind of like, they're kind of getting that split. Now, you gotta understand, all the way up through even the Revolutionary War, there will be people here that want to remain English. They will want to remain with England all the way through the war. So, as a result of the Boston Tea Party, the king will enact the Intolerable Acts. The Intolerable Acts, or the Coercive Acts as they're called here in the colonies, are a set of 4 laws. They're a set of 4 laws. The first, the Boston Port Act. The Boston Port Act said that Boston Harbor, which was probably one of the biggest trading hubs at that time, like today you would look at California as one of the big places that come and drop off ship material, Florida, the Gulf of Mexico, but back then it was Massachusetts and Boston. So they're going to shut down the Boston Harbor. England will shut down the Boston Harbor until the price of the tea is paid for. Okay. The Massachusetts Government Act. The Council of Massachusetts, which was elected at the time by the people, will now only be appointed by English officials. So the English governor of Massachusetts will be the one appointing everyone in the government or the council. Do you think he is going to appoint someone that is for the colonist or against the colonist? Yes, sir.
Against.
Against. Why?
Because they don't want the colonists to be.
Well, it's one of those things, if I'm paying Elijah money to do a job for me, right? And all of a sudden, do you think Elijah's going to start to appoint people that's against me, or is he going to support the people who's paying him?
Support the people.
A lot of times he'll support the people who's paying him. There's a few exceptions, obviously, with that, but there's an occasion to where they will give in and do other things with other people. The Administration of Justice Act. The Administration of Justice Act basically stated that English military and English administrators could not be tried for crimes. They could do what they wanted, and there was no consequence for them. And the last one was the Quartering Act. The Quartering Act was making colonists house and support soldiers. So how would you feel if you didn't have very much and I came in and said, you have to take 7 people of the military and you have to feed them before you feed yourselves? Happy, not happy?
And angry.
Kind of angry, right? Because I don't want to give my stuff up to you when I don't have that much. So you can see how everything is leading up to this great split that's going to happen. Okay? And it's going to happen rather quickly. And when you look at these 4, not necessarily the Port Act, but these 3, when we look at the first 10 amendments, you'll see that a lot of those things are heavily written within the first 10 amendments. Okay, as a matter of fact, the 3rd amendment is basically the no quartering or housing of soldiers. So it comes directly from this. So it's going to leave a bad taste in the colony's mouth. All right, as a response to this, what they're going to do is the colonists are going to hold the first Continental Congress. The First Continental Congress will be held in Philadelphia. 12 of the 13 states will be represented. Georgia will be the only state that is not represented in this. That's because they are fighting an Indian revolt at that time. They are going to basically give one last chance for peace in the First Continental Congress. They are going to send an olive branch petition to England, which is saying, hey, we still want to be a part of you, but we want to be a part of you on our own terms. We want to be a part of you with us in charge. How does that work? Would that work with your mom and dad? If you said, hey, I still want to live here, but I kind of want to live here, but I want to do what I want to do. Yeah.
It wouldn't really work.
And that's kind of the same thing with the king. The king is probably like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. My army's bigger than your army. What type of army did they have? Did we have? I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Farmers.
Farmers, basically, militia people. And even those were the militia that trained back then. They probably was more of a celebration and a party to get together and train than it was actual training. So, is your hand up or are you just stretching? No, that's fine. I don't care. If you had your hand up, I didn't want you to leave it up waiting on me. So coming out of the Continental Congress are going to be two main things. The Declaration of Rights will state that we are still English. We still want to be part of England. Okay? Some did, some didn't, but you have to make it look like the appearance of that you want to. But at the same time, while they said that they wanted to remain with England, the Articles of Association said England needs to repeal all of these items, all of these taxes, and they called on all of the colonists to not buy any English goods. It also stated that in the First Continental Congress that if England does not repeal all of these attacks on the colonists, then they would meet again with the Second Continental Congress. Which was in what city, Elijah? City of brotherly love, not Brothertown. You guys know? Take a shot. Pennsylvania? Yes, sir? Philadelphia. Philadelphia is actually where the first Congress will be held. So Philadelphia has a big play in this. The Second Continental Congress will take place, and the War for Revolution will have already broken out. The Battle of Concord and Lexington have already occurred. So it is here that we are going to create our own army, and they are going to go at the actual attempt to break away. The Revolutionary War, not going to get into very much, right? Several battles. In the beginning, it's going to be taking place in the Northeast, Boston, New York, that general area. The colonists will find that they're not having a lot of success there, so they will flee south into South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, and then all of a sudden the tide will start to turn. And partly because England was so confident, and England had such a great military tradition that they didn't take the colonists very lightly. And the colonists eventually learned that, how did they fight it in that time? Go ahead.
In straight line.
In a straight line. They all lined up, and they all just shot each other. Not the smartest thing in the world. Well, the good thing about living here and fighting with the Native Americans in the French and Indian War, the colonists learned to hide behind trees. The colonists learned to hide behind houses. They learned to hit and run, And that really threw England off because they didn't understand why they wouldn't just stand and fight. If they would have just stood and fight, we probably really had no chance. So like I said, the war will start to turn when it goes to the south. And eventually the Battle of Yorktown will be the last battle of the Revolutionary War, giving the United States its own country. Oh, real quick, backtrack. The book Common Sense. Written by who, Megan? Oh, go ahead.
William Penn.
Not William Penn. Good guess, though. Thomas
Hey.
Thomas Paine. Yep. Thomas Paine will write Common Sense. This is a book that tries to sway people who may not necessarily agree with the war to siding with those who are fighting for independence. And it'll have a great success. It'll basically say you need a few things to have your own country. You've got to have a government. You've got to have people willing to stand up for themselves and a few other things. But Thomas Paine's writing will have a big impact on making people accept the idea of the Revolutionary War. All right. Quick review. Who fought the French and Indian War?
England.
England. It's in the name. France. And
Indians.
Indians on both sides. On both sides. Very good. Very good. Where was it fought? What area of the country was it fought in?
Georgia?
Not Georgia.
Boston.
Great. No, you're thinking all of the revolutionary stuff. Okay? You're kind of moved right along with me to the Revolutionary War, but this is more fought here around this area, the Great Lakes, and area. So kind of, let's see. Elijah, tell me about the Mayflower Compact.
Between the non-saints and the saints joined together.
With what?
The Mayflower Compact.
Very good. But what was the Mayflower Compact? What did they organize? A set of, kind of, you're on the right track, but you're not getting there. Anyone at all? Gentlemen, anything?
Nope.
It's all right.
No.
Megan, I think you might know it.
It's about a set of rules that benefit the religious and the non-religious at the same time.
Right. Let's just say, for instance, all of us got shipwrecked somewhere. Are we all going to get along? All have the same ideas? All have the same way we should approach and move on?
Eventually, we'd all end
No.
up hating each other.
You're maybe.
You'd be first to go.
But we wouldn't all have the same ideas. Thank you. The same thought process. The same. Hey, I think we should live in the woods. No, I think we should live on the beach. No, I think we should, live in the rocks. Everybody's going to have a different opinion. So what happens is we've all got to come together. How are you, sir?
Good. I heard some teaching going on. This is great.
Trying to.
Yeah.
When my memory works. But it's one of those things that then all of a sudden, so you have to get together and like, okay, well, should everybody have to work? What do you think? Everybody should have to work or not when we're at this place? Why? I shouldn't have to.
Because if not everyone works, how are you going to get it done fast?
But if you work, I'll be okay.
You're not going to get it done faster, though.
No, you're not going to get it done faster.
So it's going to take forever.
It is going to take forever.
Especially
But
if
I'll be.
it's
But by the time you get done, I'll be okay.
No,
Right?
she won't let you in.
Should we all share food?
Yeah.
Why should I share food with you? I worked hard for mine.
Because we're going to cook it.
Because we can.
Because we're all human beings.
We are all human beings,
I
but
need to eat.
are all humans equal?
Yes.
We are all equal, but do we all put out the same amount of effort?
No.
No.
No, we do not. You are right. We're all equal, but the effort thing. So let's say, and your name is
Brandon.
Brandon?
With an E-N.
Okay. And if I butcher it later, I apologize. I'm terrible with names. Let's say that you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. and you work till 6 o'clock at night, and you've worked your butt off all day long, and I get up at noon, and I work till about 12:45. Do we deserve the same amount of food?
No.
But we're all humans.
Well, it depends on how you work.
It does depend on how you work.
You get $1 an
And
hour.
that's one thing that the colonists had to discover and find out as well is equal, you have to have equal output, equal effort, equal want to. Okay? So that is one of the things that goes on. Let's see. What happens at the Boston Tea Party?
People
Did
dressed
I
up
ask
as
you that already?
yeah.
Okay. Let me give you a harder one then.
I'm pretty sure you asked her.
Oh. Okay, Boston Tea Party. You're still good then.
It's where these people dressed up as Indians, and then they got all the tea, and then they dumped it in the pot.
Do you know what they were called? The colonists, they had a certain name. They were the rebels, but what?
The tea.
No. They were called the Sons of Liberty. They were the Sons of Liberty. Let's see, Elijah, what was the Quartering Act? Maybe we need to do some writing when we get home. Quartering Act, Megan.
When you had the soldiers live with you and you had to feed them.
Oh, yeah.
Right, you had to feed them. Let's see. Who wrote Common Sense? Oh, I already said that one too, didn't I? Let's see. What was the first tax enacted on the colonists? Nope, not you. I gave you one. You couldn't answer it. Yes, sir.
Stamp Act.
Stamp Act. And what did the colonists do to protest the Stamp Act?
Not buy any English goods.
Not buy any English goods. Not necessarily then. That's a little bit later on. But you're on the right path. What did they throw in the harbor?
The boss.
They threw the tea in the harbor. Let's see. What was the first constitution in England? Or in Europe, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Declaratory Act.
No, not the Declaratory Act. It's probably go ahead.
Magna Carta.
The Magna Carta was the first constitution in England. Okay. Anyone need water, bathroom, or you may continue?
I want to continue.
Awesome. Well, you get food later, maybe. So the Treaty of Paris is going to end the Revolutionary War. Now, all of a sudden, the colonists have a problem. We got rid of England, but now what? How many colonies were there? Yes, sir.
13.
There were 13, and 13 colonies that all thought alike. How different is New York from Georgia?
Not very. Very.
Quite a bit. Just even terrain-wise. I mean, weather-wise. New York didn't grow tobacco like Georgia did, like Virginia did, like South Carolina did. They were more of a industrial type place. You know, they were more fruits and stuff of that nature as to where, so they're hugely different. What is the difference between Rhode Island and, well, even do another one, Pennsylvania? What's the big one?
Island is small.
It's very small. Does it have a lot of people? No, it doesn't. So there's different needs and different concerns. So now the biggest problem is you've got 13 different individuals or 13 different entities all trying to become one. Okay? Not an easy task to become one. So the first thing and the first new type of government that they are going to suggest is the Articles of Confederation. Okay? The Articles of Confederation, they relied really heavy on what they had just come out of. The king was very overbearing. He was very powerful. His rule basically was law. So now what you're going to have in the Articles of Confederation is all of the colonies want to have their own say. It makes it a very weak, centralized government. Like the president today would be the head of the central government. So when they created the Articles of Confederation, they did it with the idea that the president, which doesn't really exist yet at this time, would not have as much power. Who's going to have the most power, the central or the states?
The state.
The states. But when you do that, you create the problem of each state wants its own power. So what would happen in this instance? And there was plans that they could do this under the Articles of Confederation. What if Georgia wanted to sign a treaty with France to trade goods and said that you can only trade with us, you can't trade with the other 12? Does that create a good country? No, it creates good for Georgia, but not good for the other ones, right? So the Articles of Confederation was very weak. It didn't give a lot of power to any type of centralized government. It was more of a league of friendship. They wanted to have like, hey, it's really nice being your neighbor and all, but let's make sure I get my way. Okay? I'm sure it's like you guys at home. I'm sure you guys just share everything so well and are like, no, you take it, I'll wait, right? I'm sure. Yeah. It's kind of that way. We'll have a league of friendship, but as long as the friendship enticed me to have it first. Okay? Which I know we don't have that problem at all at home.
That's a lie.
Yeah. So, stop. So, it's one of those things. So they're going to see that, okay, the Articles of Confederation has a lot of holes in it. It has a lot of problems in it. So what they're going to do is they're going to call on people to go and have a constitutional convention. When they go to the constitutional convention, they are going to only have the authority to change the Articles of Confederation. They did not have the authority to create a whole new system of government. But that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to scrap the Articles of Confederation because they know that it is weak, it is not going to be able to sustain the country, and they're going to get rid of it. Again, they have no authority to do so, but they are going to hold the Constitutional Convention. What's going to happen is they're going, like I said, they're going to create a whole new system of government. James Madison, which is the what numbered president, Megan? Huh? Not third.
Second.
Not second.
Oh,
Fourth?
Not fourth. Let's see. Let me make sure.
Fifth.
I think he's the fifth. It is Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison. And then they're all for fourth. Yeah, okay. So he is known as the father of the Constitution. He is known as the father of the Constitution because that is where we get the vast majority of our information about the convention from. The Constitutional Convention is going to be a lot of his notes, a lot of his diaries, a lot of his information is going to give us what happened in the convention. And plus, he is going to show up prepared. He's going to show up ready on day one with a plan that says this is the way the new government should work. And his plan is going to be known as the Virginia Plan. And the Virginia Plan states that states with more people in it should have greater representation. So the more people you have in it, the more representation you should have. Which is not going to go over well with states like Rhode Island, the smaller states. So they are going to come back with the New Jersey Plan. The New Jersey Plan says no, everyone should be equal. All states should be represented equally. So what they're going to come up with is known as what, Megan? The Great Compromise. Okay? The Great Compromise is going to create two houses of government. It's going to create the Senate and it's going to create the House of Representatives, which is what type of cameral legislation? Do you remember? Two houses means what? 3 means tri. 4 means quad. What is 2?
Double.
Not double.
Quadruple?
Dose.
Quadruple would be 4.
Dose.
Bi. Bicameral would be a two-house legislature. Okay? So they're gonna come up with the Connecticut Compromise. The Connecticut Compromise is going to say that there are gonna be two houses of government. The House of Representatives is going to be based on what? Would you like to take a guess? Population or equality? Yes, sir.
Equality.
Equality is not the House. That will be the Senate. So what are they based on? If it's not equality, what are they based on? How many people you have? Okay. So for instance, today, what state would have the most members in the House of Representatives? Yes, sir.
Washington.
Not Washington. You gotta think, what state has the most people in it?
New York.
No.
Texas.
No.
California.
California. Okay, California would have the most. I think the last census, they had 53 members in the House of Representatives. But they lost, I think they lost 2 or 3 houses, or 2 or 3 seats in the last census, so that doesn't exist. They still have the most, but they don't have as much. So that's going to create the first big thing that's going to get them together and say, okay, we can live with this. But now the South has a problem. The South has a problem saying, okay, population is fine, how are we going to count slaves? We're not, is the response that the North says. The North says we're not going to count slaves at all towards population. Why would they do that?
Because they have more.
Because the slaves were considered equal.
The slaves were not considered people at the time. Okay? You're right, but so let me ask you a question. Why would you not want them counted as people as far as representing or as far as the population? Hold on, I know you know. Go ahead.
There's too many.
There's too many, and it's going to give the South more what?
Population.
And that's going to give them more seats
In the house.
in the House of Representatives. You got to think, I think there was 12 million people in the South and 3 million of them were slaves. As to compared to like 26, 27 million in the North. So that's quite a few of a difference. So now what is the next question, Megan? What does the North want them to count totally as? The North wants them to count total towards taxation and none towards representation. So they're going to have to come up with a compromise. Stop. Immediately. So they're going to have to come up with a compromise. They're going to come up with a compromise that says that slaves count for what, Megan? They are going to count as 3/5 of a person, and they're going to count as 3/5 of taxation. So, is it good or bad that they're counted as 3/5?
Kind of bad.
Kind of bad. Why?
Because you really can't count them very good if they're like in 3/5.
Right. It'll take a little bit. But what were they considered before?
Not at all.
Not at all. So is 3/5 so getting at least a little bit of recognition?
Yeah.
A little bit. But at the same time, why is it bad?
Because they have every right to count as a full person.
They do have every right to count as a full person, but if you're going to count them as a full person, then shouldn't they be equal?
Mm-hmm.
And do they want to see them as equal?
No.
No, not back then, right? You've got to have this mindset. You can't have the 2022 mindset. You've got to have the 1700 mindset. Okay, and you've got to look at it from that perspective. So this right here, and I always tell the people this right here, the 3/5 compromise is the first start towards the Civil War in 1791. Okay, because this is the first time they discussed how do we deal with slavery. Okay. As time goes on, they're going to require that 9 out of the 13 colonies have to agree for the Constitution to become the official document of the United States. Okay? What is the first state to ratify the Constitution? Not a bad guess, but not Pennsylvania. Yes.
Philadelphia.
Nah. Did you say Philadelphia? It is a city, not a state. Not New Hampshire. The first state is
Georgia.
not Georgia.
Virginia.
Virginia. Very good. Very good. You knew that all along. You're just trying to make them.
I
Like,
said
good
Virginia.
job. You should be proud of yourself. Let them all sweat it out. I like that. Ninth state to ratify the Constitution.
Yeah.
It's known as the Constitution State.
Pennsylvania.
No. Good guess. Anyone? Anyone at all?
Yeah.
Elijah.
Rhode Island.
No.
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. New Hampshire is the
It's
ninth.
not called that.
It is too.
No, it's not.
It's called the Granite State.
I did
I know.
the entire
It's
thing of
okay.
it. Nothing came up for that.
No, you're wrong.
Okay.
Well, one of us is right, and it can't be me or you.
See,
So, what happens once the ninth state ratifies the Constitution? It becomes the official document of the United States. Who's the 13th?
me.
Who?
Pennsylvania.
Not Pennsylvania. Boy, you like Pennsylvania, though.
Oh.
Who?
New Jersey.
Who?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. See, he knows it all. Do you want to teach?
No.
Okay.
Guessing.
You're nailing it here. Making me look bad.
I didn't know.
I have to have notes. You're just winging it. You haven't even opened up your notebook yet. You got it all down. So it is, and one of the things I found interesting is when Benjamin Franklin comes out of it, and I can't remember the name of the lady that asked him the question, what do we have? Do we have monarchy or who?
John Adams' wife.
It was John Adams' wife.
Abigail.
Abigail, thank you.
You're welcome.
She comes out and asks, what do we have? A monarchy or a republic? And what does he state, Megan?
I remember hearing this.
And it is one of the most accurate statements even to this day.
I forgot.
We have a democracy if you can keep it. No, we have a democracy if you can keep it. What does a democracy mean? Yes, sir.
You spelled Franklin.
It doesn't surprise me.
You wrote Franklin.
I spell terrible.
You wrote Franklin.
Okay, stop. So what we have is a representative democracy. What is the name of someone who represents you in Congress, Megan? What are they called? Not congressmen. It's a definition we went over. Delegates. So we elect delegates, which are called today, they're the House members or the Senate members or the local politicians. We vote them into office, and we vote them into office to do what? When they go to Washington, D.C., are they supposed to vote the way they want to vote, the way the political party wants them to vote, or are they supposed to vote the way the state wants them to vote?
The state.
The state. And they become a little bit too carried away as far as thinking, this is what I like, this is what I want, this is what I want. I once heard a gentleman say that, and we'll get into the 17th Amendment later, which calls for people to actually elect the senators. And he stated that it was one of the worst constitutional amendments ever. And he said the way it should be done is the way it was done before. And that's that state legislatures, like the Wisconsin state legislature, should appoint the person who goes to Washington, D.C. to be the senator. And when I first heard it, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. The people should vote. And the more he explained it, the more I thought, he might have a point. He said that the reason you should do this is because if you have them tied to the state legislature, the people who are closer to the state, they would be more closely aligned to vote with that state's values. Which makes sense. For instance, but the problem is California values the same as Wisconsin values? No. It's not the same as Florida, it's not the same as Georgia. So whether you agree or disagree with whichever side it is, for instance, Ted Cruz is from Texas. Texas is a very, very strict conservative state. Okay? He goes to Washington, D.C. When he votes for conservative things, is he representing his people? Yeah. He is. When he votes for conservative things, he's representing his people. If you take Nancy Pelosi, which is the person from San Francisco, which is an extremely liberal person, when she goes to Washington, D.C., and she votes for liberal things, is she representing her people?
No.
No, she is. We may not like it, but she is representing the values of San Francisco, which are not the values of Texas, right? And because there are people, and like I said, I'm going to argue with you, okay? So don't take anything personal. There are people who will say Ted Cruz isn't doing his job because he's voting conservative, but his people in Texas want him to vote conservative. There are people that say Nancy Pelosi is not doing her job because she's voting liberal, but she is kind of voting the way her people want it. The problem is when you get someone from, let's say, the Fox Valley here, which is a pretty semi-conservative state, that they would go to Washington and vote for completely liberal ideas. Then that person's not doing their job the way they should do it. And if you take someone from an extremely liberal position, let's say New York City. Let's say someone is elected from New York City, and it is a very more liberal type thinking than it is a conservative state. If they went to Washington, D.C. and started voting conservative, are they voting the way their people want them to? No. And it's tough, right? Because we want our way. And we all do. Right? How could you vote for that? How could you do that? And I think that way. I believe I'm right with a lot of you when we see that. How can you do that? But you've got to understand, hopefully they aren't voting the way they want. They're voting the way they should vote for their people. Because that's the way it was designed to do. And it's frustrating because you don't always win. And I used to get really upset on election nights. I mean, that's one of the few nights I actually stay up.
Why?
Because I like politics and I get frustrated when my side don't win. I do.
I remember I
Makes
got on
no
the phone that
sense.
night.
Go on your phone that night. So, like I said, that's kind of the early stages of getting us to the actual Constitution. I will probably start the actual amendments next week. Is there any questions you guys have? Yes, sir.
What day next week?
Probably Thursday again. Does that work?
No.
No? Okay.
I have science club at Thursday.
You have science club? Okay.
He didn't have it this week. It's tomorrow.
That's fine. What day works better?
Um,
Tuesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday? My only problem with Wednesday is they have Awana here. We'd have to do it.
What's a one?
It's just it's a program they do for the church, for the
Monday?
youth kids.
Monday?
Monday, let me check and see. I'm not opposed to moving it because you two are here.
Monday or Friday?
I mean-
You have other people coming on Thursday nights too.
On Thursday
so
night, okay.
You're either talking about adding a class or.
I can add one.
That's fine.
I can add one for Monday for you guys if you want, if you're interested. I have no
Yeah.
problem doing that.
Yeah, it just worked
Monday
this
or-
week to come Thursday.
No,
But,
like I said, that's if you
We
need me to do it
appreciate it.
Monday, I can do it Monday.
okay. Yeah, Mondays or Wednesdays are open.
Okay. Yeah. Wednesdays, I just think they have Awana, and I'm not sure how they would.
Are you done?
I'm just asking questions.
Well, I was just.
Yes, I'm done.
If you were done.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I wonder if South Carolina and North Carolina think alike.
To a large degree, yes.